swords. They are simultaneously the coolest and the most devastating weapons to ever be created by man. Any foolhardy peasant can pick up a blade and swing it to and fro, but only the true masters can compose symphonies of battle with their bladed companions, and therefore only the finest blades will do for these true masters. These are divided into 4 categories of Meito. At the lowest, the Wazamono, or the graded sword class. Then, the Ryo Wazamono, the skillful grade. O Wazamono, the great grade. And to cap off, the apex of the pyramid, the Saijo O Wazamono, the supreme graded swords. Only 12 of these mythical swords exist in the world, and only the true masters are capable of wielding their no doubt divine power. Hey guys, check it out! I got Yoru in the mail yesterday! I'm gonna go cut this pineapple in half with it now. Oh, crap. Okay, just gonna... Oh, alright, that works. Okay, so... this is pretty epic. I never thought I was going to own this in my life, but... here we go. Now, to be fair, I think many of you have probably seen the Man-at-Arms episode where they forge Mihawk's Yoru from scratch, and this is not of that caliber, okay? The blade is dulled, and, you know, you can get these off Amazon, actually. Go check it out. Thanks again to Jonathan, the loyal fan that sent this to me. So, you want to be delicate with it. You can't be using it exactly the same way Mihawk did. His version is, of course, way bigger than this. I like it, though. It's like a Tekking-sized Yoru. It's still really heavy and extremely awkward, but the way Mihawk uses his sword is like, he can like throw himself on top of it and then like stab the ground while standing on the guard because it's so freaking huge in the anime. So he's like landing on his sword and then he picks it up and he whips it around at people. So he's much more agile. To him, that blade might as well be part of himself, okay? He's trained with it for so long. He's the greatest swordsman in the world. He has a Saijo Owazamono blade sword, so he can wield this thing as if it was like a butter knife, how light it was, you know, even though it's this huge, giant, black, just don't mess with this guy's sword, okay? You know, we've talked about the warlord system being abolished, and I did that whole video about, like, you know, would the Marines attack Mihawk at his island? Like, I guess conceivably they would if it's like, okay, Mihawk, you're no longer a warlord. You're just a dirty pirate like everyone else, and we're gonna bring you in. Like, don't mess with Mihawk. Just take one look at the dude, see this strapped to his back, and then just turn and walk in the opposite direction, okay? It's not worth it, man. It's just not worth it. So, I always like talking about swords. They're a great topic. I should do just a whole video just on various anime swords, not just from One Piece, but throughout all sorts of different anime and manga. But for right now, let's just do a good, solid discussion video on Yoru. I think it's warranted. Okay, so... we actually see Yoru, well before we even find out about the Meito-graded, sword, the whole class system, right? At the beginning of the series, we have Zoro, he's got his 3 katanas, he has the Wado Ichimonji back then, but aside from that, he just had 2 other random katanas that are probably not ranked, and they were just random ones he probably just picked up. From how we could see how Zoro acted when he got to Logtown and he went into Ippon Matsu's shop and to look for swords, you can tell this has happened before. The Wado Ichimonji is an Owazamono grade, alright? So it's pretty sturdy, and it's his, like, treasured possession, his keepsake of Kuina. So that blade manages to get through situations pretty much unscathed. So, but to be a master of Santoryu, you have to have 3 swords, obviously, so you could figure Zoro probably picks up whatever dull blades he can get and uses them, and they probably break and shatter all the time. When he walked into Ippon Matsu's shop, he even just said, you know, oh, just give me whatever you can for 100,000 berries, and Ippon's like, I can give you, like, 2 dull, rusty blades for that, and Zoro's like, okay, fine, whatever, I'll make do. So he's done this before, but that isn't until Logtown we find out about that. The only other sword of note that we get to see in East Blue, and I mean, there's other characters that use bladed weapons, like, Kuro had his, like, giant cat nail things which do not look practical. Buggy used a cutlass, but when it comes to actual swords that are of merit, there are Zoro swords, and then there's Mihawk's sword, okay? And when it comes to an introduction of a character, Mihawk is like très magnifique. Alright, you can't get much better than that, alright? So they're hanging out at the Baratier. Krieg shows up. Oh, I'm sorry. Krieg shows up in this giant weather-beaten galleon. It's fallen apart, you know, like a piece of driftwood. They just came back from the Grand Line, and they're talking about how there was only one man that just wrecked our entire fleet. Just one man! And you know, at that point, when you're reading One Piece, you're thinking, oh, okay, maybe this is foreshadowing, setting this up for later. Like, they're talking about this one man that wrecked an entire fleet of 50 ships on his own. You know, when the Straw Hats finally get to the Grand Line, they might run into that guy at some point. Oh, no, no, no. Immediately after we find out about Mihawk's existence and, you know, what his name is, he's the greatest swordsman in the world and all that crap, he shows up. He shows up floating in a tiny little coffin boat dinghy, pulls out this giant sword. A few of Krieg's men try to take pot shots at him. One guy takes out a pistol, like, yeah, that's the guy! And they shoot at him, and Mihawk doesn't even care. He doesn't even flinch. He just takes out his sword and just points it in that direction, which is already not easy to do because this thing is extremely unbalanced in terms of weight, but he just stretches out his sword and the bullets just kind of hit the tip, and Mihawk, all he has to do is just and the bullets just get, you know, diverted around him. They just ricochet off the blade, alright? So, observation Haki, anybody? I'd say observation Haki, but you're not even really worried about that, or if he has some sort of clairvoyance. You're focused on the blade, the ornate design, the cross shape. Unless you're watching the 4Kids dub, they had to shorten the guard because crosses are bad, kids. You know, gotta make sure to censor that. Standards and practices, what can you do? But even with that, it still looks pretty damn cool. It's got a black blade, it's got the really ornate design, it's got the gems in it, it's got a gem here on the pummel, so looks really cool, and you could just, even without any other characters saying that he's the greatest swordsman in the world, it just kind of oozes from him just by looking at him. He's just chill, he's got the badass mustache, looks like freaking Dracula, if Dracula freaking trained with Rurouni Kenshin for 1,000 years or something. Now I want to see Rurouni Kenshin fight Dracula. I don't know why, but I just think that would be really entertaining to see. My money's on Kenshin. But, yeah, okay, so just looking at him, he's got the cross aesthetic and everything. He's like vampire, Transylvania, giant sword. Alright, neat. And later on, you find out he basically lives in a creepy castle on a, you know, a foggy, dreary island full of a bunch of baboons that literally learned swordsmanship just by watching him. So, yeah, he's a rather imposing dude, okay? And you know what? Ever since then, Mihawk has had a little bit of comedic elements thrown at him, you know, especially with Perona being on his island and stuff. It's not like he was always a hard ass and he didn't start getting, you know, lightening up until Perona showed up. He was probably always like that. It's just we don't really get to focus on Mihawk too much in the series. He's very much like Shanks in that regard, where whenever Mihawk shows up, it's like a big deal, because we understand, like, okay, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of other strong characters in the series, but you know, he's the greatest swordsman in the world. Okay, even if you were going to say a character like Rayleigh, and Rayleigh is debated to be one of the absolute strongest characters in the series, you know, Rayleigh could not just, like, take out Mihawk in just one shot. Like, oh, Mihawk, alright, well, I guess I'll make an afternoon out of this. That'd be a pretty epic fight, alright? That'd be pretty damn cool to see those two go at it, alright? And of course, you got other great swordsmen like Shiryu and everybody, but, you know, they show up way more often than Mihawk. Mihawk had a lot of absences from the story. He showed up in East Blue twice, once at the Baratier and then once at the very end when Luffy got his first bounty. He arrives at Shanks' island and meets him, and then they have a little bit of small talk about Luffy, and they talk about their previous duels, and how Mihawk doesn't want to fight Shanks anymore because he feels now that Shanks lost his arm, it's just not worth it, right? But after that, Mihawk kind of disappears. He pops in at the meeting of the warlords after Alabasta and stuff, but it isn't really till Marineford when he shows up to fight again, and we get to see him really utilize his swordsmanship, and then after that, of course, he goes back home to Muggy Island. That's where he meets Zoro and Perona, and then begins Zoro's training, okay? So, and it took that was a twist. I didn't see that coming. I don't think a lot of people did, because people viewed Zoro, his ultimate, goal, his dream, is to become the greatest swordsman. Well, what do you have to do to become the greatest swordsman? You gotta defeat the previous greatest swordsman, and here we are, only halfway through the series. Zoro's confronting Mihawk at his island, not asking him to fight, but asking him to train him, and that was a big thing, alright? So, yeah. But we're not here to talk about Mihawk so much, although I love talking about that dude. Unfortunately, I started these One Piece discussions, like, with Mihawk. Like, Mihawk was one of the very first videos I ever did. I did one on the One Piece treasure, I did one on the Devil Fruits, and I just did one on Mihawk. And, you know, and that was back in, like, 2016. I'm like, oh, man, I kind of started with my best foot forward. Now I kind of want to just make another... I don't know if I have a lot of new stuff to say about him. I just want to talk about Mihawk some more, okay? Can you blame me? Look at the man. But yeah, okay, let's get into talking about the sword itself. Okay, so I think the first thing people bring up when discussing Yoru is the blade constantly coated in armament haki? Because it is kokuto, it is the black sword, the black blade. Yoru means knight in Japanese. Okay, so, before the time skip, we didn't know this yet. We knew armament haki existed right around the time we got to Sabaody and Rayleigh was explaining it and everything, and we got to see, you know, Sentomaru use armament. But it wasn't until after the time skip that Oda started adding that black effect to the characters, like whenever Luffy uses armament, his arms go black. Whenever Virgo, his whole body goes into the black shade, you know, the vulcanization of it. I think that was more of Oda just, you know, before the time skip, the fandom didn't really know much about Haki. After the time skip, we did, so, and the characters know about it too, so he's like, alright, just to make it easier on everybody, I'll draw, you know, their bodies or their weapons turning black, you know, when they use armament, just to tell right away. So the question is, because Mihawk is such a masterful swordsman, and of course, he's a master of armament haki, if anybody would be, he would be, definitely, maybe his armament haki is just so damn good, he was able just to coat the blade in a constant armament haki, okay, and that's why it's perpetually black. Now, I don't think that's the case, for two reasons. Number one, we've seen black swords before, and this might not actually be an excuse, because some people have actually, I'll explain this as I go, but of course you have Shusui, which is Clear Autumn Water, the sword that Ryuma gave Zoro, and this is of course a black blade that has like a red sheen, like a temper pattern on it. Now, people have said, well, it might not be a case of, like, the person using it just imparts armament into it constantly. It might be like in Ryuma's case, Ryuma had a regular blade, and Ryuma poured so much armament into it over the years, it just permanently stained the sword black. And that's a possibility, but I really think it's just the metal in that instance. Even when Zoro was fighting with Shutsui for the first time against Oars, he mentioned how the blade was much heavier than Yubashiri and his other blades, and he used his pound-a-hoe, and like the vacuum wave got sucked into the wave coming from Shutsui because it was much heavier. So I like to think it is just a special type of ore that can only maybe be found on Wano, kind of the same thing with Sea Prism Stone, and that's what creates the black sheen. I don't think it's like a constant armament haki. Another reason I don't think that's the case is every time we at least see Zoro using armament haki on his swords, haki envelops the entire sword, not just the blade. When he used it on his swords, it covered the hilt and the guard and even his hands. You know, it turned his hands into, you know, the vulcanization, the black sheen, and then his entire swords turned black as well. So that's not really the case with Mihawk's blade. His whole sword doesn't turn black, although I think he could do that quite easily if he wanted to. It's just the blade that stays it like that. So I like to think it's just a particular kind of metal. If you like to think that it's some special armament haki, like ore or something, or it's just like regular steel, it's just if you pour enough armament into it over the years, maybe even over the decades, it eventually stays black, that's fine. But that's a big thing that people mention when they bring up Yoru here. Let's talk about some of its attacks. Now, it has no named attacks in the anime or in the manga. Mihawk is a guy that doesn't need flashy attack names. He doesn't need to be swinging his sword and be like, Getsuga Tensho. He just swings the damn sword and slices a mountain in half, okay? Actions speak louder than words, okay? Now, in the video games, mostly Higan Battle, they did add a few names when he used his Yoru, his black sword, his Kokuto. I think one's like Kokuto First Day or Kokuto Rising Star or something. Like, basically they just took unnamed attacks that were shown in the manga, like the one he used to slice off the entire ice wave that Aokiji created, and the attack that I mentioned earlier where he literally jumps on top of the blade's guard and then just boom! Slams it into the ground trying to impale Luffy. They named those attacks. Oddly enough, though, the world's strongest slash, the move that he used against Whitebeard, and it really kind of opened up the war. There were battles going on before that, but the battle was pretty much in its early stages when Mihawk decided just to jump up on the freaking platform, stare Whitebeard down dead in his eyes, and was just like, so that's Whitebeard, huh? World's strongest man. The man closest to becoming king of the pirates. Yeah, I might not have another chance at this. I need to see what's gonna happen here. So he unsheaths Yoru and just one-handed, I think, mind you. He just shing, and then it creates an energy wave. It is a Getsuga Tensho, basically, except it's green in the anime. And it's just, and then just, you know, Whitebeard doesn't even move. He doesn't have to because Josu's the one that blocked the shot, who's made of diamond. And so he blocks it. And Mihawk, at the end of this, he's just, okay, and he just sheaths his sword and goes to sit back down. So I mentioned earlier just how easily he uses this thing. And, you know, unfortunately, we've never really seen him in a straight-up battle where he busts out, like, 100% of his skill. The closest we've gotten to seeing that is when he fought against Vista. Because you think about all the other fights he had before that. He fought Shanks, but we've never seen that on camera, on screen. He fought against Zoro back in East Blue, but, you know, Zoro was way under-leveled to that point. It wasn't even a threat to him. The only reason Mihawk even used Yoru in that battle, because he has another sword he keeps on his necklace, his little cross necklace he just takes off. You know, the only reason he used Yoru to begin with is because Zoro impressed him so much with his sense of honor as a sword. Scars on the back are a swordsman's shame. And he's like, damn straight, son, damn straight. But hope you can survive this, and if you do, come and meet me in a few hundred years. Shing, you know? But that wasn't really a fight on Mihawk's level. He scuffled with Luffy, but Luffy doesn't use swords, okay? So we didn't really get to see much of that there. Then he fights against Vista very briefly, and we don't even get to see much of that fight. But hey, if there was any fight so far in the series where we've seen that Mihawk was going to bust out as much effort as possible, it was with Vista, and it wasn't 100%. It was only maybe I don't know, 10-20%. We need to see the fight with Shanks. That's what we need to see. That would have been the fight that causes the heavens to rankle and every living creature within 100 kilometers to go and run in their holes. And if they don't dig holes, if they're fish or something, they sink to the bottom of the ocean, they dig a hole there. Alright, that's the battle we need to see. Mihawk at 100% swinging this thing around in ways you never even thought you could use a sword. Right? I can imagine him he takes Yoru and he whips it like a freaking boomerang and it just flies through the air and then he speeds through it, and it cuts through, Shanks blocks it, and it reflects, and it, Mihawk arrives, grabs it, and then tries to plant it into him, and then he blocks it again, like that kind of crazy aerobatical crap. Aerobatical, is that a word? I don't know, but I'm really pumped right now, that's the point, alright? And, it already happened. That's the thing that kicks me in the teeth. It's this epic fight of the ages already occurred. We don't know where it occurred, but we know Whitebeard was present. You know, Whitebeard, I don't know how he got the notice of this. Maybe Shanks and Mihawk, they sent out flyers, or people just, there were hype men for them. He's like, dude, Captain, Pops, Whitebeard, what is it? Spit it out, man. I'm drinking. Glug, glug, glug. Mihawk and Shanks are fighting over on Badass Island. I'm like, oh, man, we gotta get front row seats to that. Marco, bring the Moby Dick around. We're heading to Badass Island. Okay, Captain. Shh. You know, and I like to imagine it might not have been just Whitebeard that was present. There's this epic brawl, and Whitebeard is just a spectator there. You know, Whitebeard's just sitting there on the Moby Dick with a giant glug of sake, just, as mountains are just obliterated before him. It's like, man, this is a pretty good show. There might have been others there, too. Maybe another Yonko stopped by. Maybe Eneru popped in from the sky while he was in the middle of taking over Skypiea and building the freaking Maxim. He sensed a disturbance in the force. He's like, halt, men, I must go watch what's going on, and it's all the major players, just Roger came back from the grave to witness his pupil Shanks fight Mihawk. Alright, now listen, obviously I'm exaggerating here, but just a little bit. Just on, like, the Roger coming back from the dead and Eneru parts, okay? All that other stuff, it very well might have happened, you know? They definitely had an audience there, so I don't know exactly where you would fit that into the story, where you would fit in the Mihawk Shanks flashback fight. Maybe it's when we get to see a little bit more of Shanks. Some people have hypothesized he's going to be popping up next in Elbaf. I don't really think that. I think Elbaf's going to be a separate thing, especially after dealing with all the other Yonko. I like to think Elbaf is going to be just its own separate thing here. But hey, you know what? If he does show up, that's cool, but can we get some action there? Also, you figure, because of the warlord system being abolished, you know, it's possible that Mihawk might join up with Shanks, or Shanks might at least arrive and try to enlist Mihawk into his crew. Especially since Shanks is very cautious of Blackbeard and what he's up to and all that stuff. Shanks might be like, alright, you know, the world government's not going to do anything about Blackbeard. I guess I'm going to have to do it, but I'm going to, you know, he's very cautious. And he's like, I can't just jump in, so let me go see if I can recruit my man Mihawk here, you know, and because Mihawk and Shanks seem to be like acquaintances. They don't seem to be best buddies, but, you know, drinking buddies. Like, they'll pop over. It's like, oh, Mihawk, how you doing? Have a lager. And like, yeah, all right, I got nothing else going on today. Glug, glug, you know, whatever. So if Shanks approaches Mihawk and is like, hey there, yeah, I know we had that epic battle and everything, but, you want to help me take down a Yonko? You want to help me take out Blackbeard once and for all? Because he's really annoying me. I'll pay you back some way. Mihawk would just be like, there's nothing you can pay me back with ever since you lost your arm. Please, come on. You're not doing anything today, are you? Well, I was going to have crazy intense sex with this ghost woman that's just hanging around my castle, but yeah, okay, let's take down a Yonko instead. Let's do it. Why not? Right? You and I tag team, and that might be fun for an afternoon. You know, okay, so maybe, you know, I kid about that, but I think Shiryu and Mihawk have to fight at some point. I would not want Mihawk to lose. I would not want him to lose a battle unless it was Zoro, because that's the way it should end. You know, Zoro, Mihawk, final epic clash. Zoro wins and he claims the title, but from the way it's been going, that might not be the case. It might be the case where Zoro fights Shiryu. You know, it's very clear Mihawk. It might be the case where Mihawk fights Shiryu, and Mihawk is very clearly getting the upper hand with Shiryu. Shiryu doesn't really have a hope of winning. He's not without his skill, but it's just Mihawk's on a whole different level. And then maybe Shiryu uses his clear fruit he got from Absalom to get like a dirty hit out on Mihawk, and Mihawk ends up losing, and it ends up like Shiryu claims the black sword for himself and takes it with him. Now, I would not want to see that, but at the same time, if that did happen, the revenge battle between Zoro and Shiryu would be godly. That'd be incredible. I'm not saying Mihawk has to die, but it might just be a thing where he feels like he lost, and you know, or maybe it's like, oh, the honor of the swordsman has been tarnished here, or something with that. I'm not really sure how it would go. I don't want to see him die. I don't even want to see Yoru fall in a hand other than Mihawk, because the blade is so... It would be cool if he did lose it, though, and Shiryu picked up Yoru, and he could barely lift it, and it's so awkward, kind of like what I'm trying to do with it right now, and Shiryu picks it up, he's like, whoa, how the hell did he use this? You know, this would have taken years to master. You know, I could barely lift this thing up. It's so awkward. Kind of like Escanor's axe, you know? It's just like, not anyone can just pick the damn thing up, you know? It takes skill. That brings us to an interesting question that I probably should have brought up at the very beginning of this video rather than the end of it, but where does one acquire a Sideshow Owazamono grade sword? You know, like... You'd figure, okay, you know, Wazamono grade swords, like, well, Katetsu's kind of the exception, because we know that came from Wano, because the descendant of Katetsu, who's the Tengu, you know, he still is on Wano. So we know the Katetsu blades came from there, but the other Wazamonos, like Tashigi's Shigure, or even like, you know, the other ones, like the Ryu Wazamonos, like Yubashiri, they probably all did not originate from Wano. But when you're talking about the 12 single greatest blades in the entire world, you'd figure all 12 coming from Wano would be like, that would make the most sense, you know? Or even if not the swords themselves forged there, the metal that they're made into. And keep in mind, not all of the Saijo Owazamono blades are necessarily swords. I mean, I don't even know if you could really qualify this as a sword. I mean, it is, but is it? Like, there was that scene in the Funimation dub that I love, and it's just the Funimation voice staff seemingly just having fun with the lines. If you go and watch the episode where Mihawk slices the giant ice mountain in half, and there's some random marine in the crowd in the English dub that's like, okay guys, can we please stop calling that a sword? Swords should not be able to do that. Swords do not cut mountains in half. Can we please call that something else, like the Hell Reaper or something? But yeah, that's kind of thing there. Some of them are spears, some of them might be axe blades, but they're all like some level of blade that you'd think would have to be at least created by a master craftsman, and you'd figure that would have to come from Wano. We do get to see Mihawk during Roger's execution 24 years ago, and he does not have Yoru with him there, although he is sporting a strange fashion choice in Hawaiian shirts. So I don't know when he decided to make the changeover, but yeah, 24 years ago in his 20s, Mihawk rocked the Hawaiian shirts. Are you going to question him? Certainly not. It makes me think, like, at one point, Mihawk had to have a sword that wasn't Yoru, starting out, because he was training ever since he was a little kid to be a swordsman, so he might have had a regular katana at some point. What happened to the regular katana? Did it get broken at some point and then he got Yoru? Did someone give him Yoru? Did he find Yoru? Did he personally go out and find, like, a blacksmith? And maybe he said to the blacksmiths, he's like, I want you to create for me one of the greatest swords ever or something. Here's another idea. Maybe the metal, this is kind of going Game of Thrones with it, but let's say that there was one of the Saijo Owazamono grade swords, right? But it didn't look like Yoru. It just had, it was the metal, right? And then maybe Mihawk gave him his sword that he was using beforehand, and that expert blacksmith, like, melted down the original Saijo sword and his old katana into one blade. And it's like the Yoru is a personal grade. It still retained the level of notoriety, the Saijo O grade. It was something personally made for Mihawk. Because if you look at this thing and you look at Mihawk, like, it is absolutely the perfect blade aesthetic-wise for this man to use. Now, maybe you could say he got the blade first and then he changed his outfit a little bit. No, I don't think that's the case, though. It really does seem like he wanted the best sword ever, and so he literally sought someone out to make the blade for him. Alright? Because otherwise, I don't, like, did he just walk into Wano and asked around, like, hello there, kind samurai, I am an aspiring swordsman, I happen to think of myself as one of the greatest swordsmen in the world, possibly, I require a Saijo Owazamono grade sword. And the people at Wano were just like, oh yeah, go down there, second to left stall, and there's old Smitty. And old Smitty has a Saijo Owazamono grade sword, and he just walks down to the sword stall, and he just looks at his wares, and he sees this blade hanging on the wall, and he's like, I would like that, please. I'm like, oh, 10,000 gold. And he gives it, and I was like, oh, all right, he just buys the sword. No, that would just be silly if he just bought the sword. No, okay. It was either made for him specifically, or there was someone that had this before him, someone else maybe Mihawk looked up to, maybe his master in some way, and then he in fact defeated his master, and then his master gave him the sword. Could be something like that if we're going to keep it like that. And that also maybe might follow the level of, like, Zoro defeats Mihawk. Maybe Mihawk finds, like, all right, I had my master, and this is how he trained me, and I defeated him, and I got Yoru. And now Zoro, I'm in my 40s, I'm getting up there. Maybe Zoro, it's time I take on an apprentice, and it'll be Zoro. And if Zoro manages to defeat me someday, I'll give him Yoru. Something like that. But yeah, we've never seen anyone other than Mihawk wield Yoru, so I would find it very funny if any other character, like, they wouldn't even be able to pick it up. It's just so ridiculously heavy and awkward, they wouldn't be able to do it. And that just proves how strong it is and how epic of a sword it is in Mihawk's hands. But yeah, thanks again to Jonathan. I can't give you enough thanks for sending this to me. So I was going to end this video out. Where did my... Oh, it's right here. I was gonna end this video out by, doing the same thing I did with Ichigo's swords, going outside and slicing a giant, pineapple in half. But the thing is, it just started raining. And on top of, like, the fact this blade is really, like, you want to be careful with this. You don't want to wreck it. And I don't want to get it all wet, going out in the rain and everything. And I think it's probably best if I take good care of this. This is one of those things that I get that's like, I hope I have this the rest of my life. I'm not even shitting you. I hope this never, I don't do anything stupid with it one night and I break it. I hope that I'll have this when I eventually have children and a family, and I'll hang it in the wall on my study. Like, even if I'm not doing YouTube at that point, like, we're like 25 years in the future, and I'm 50 years old, and, my son is going to college or whatever, and it's, I still have the blade, like that, back in the day when I did YouTube, that's a keepsake, right there hanging on the wall, like that would be cool. So I'm hoping I keep this. Maybe I'll be buried with this. I don't know, but it's pretty epic. And if you want one of these as well, like I said, they're not really, like, super, super rare to get your hands on. Go on Amazon, type in Dracule Mihawk Yoru, or just Mihawk sword, and you'll find it. It runs you around 80, 90, $100. But for sword collectors, I mean, it's pretty cool to have. So, yeah, and that's the same thing with all of Zoro's swords. Everyone always asks me, I still get comments to this day on the sword videos, like, where'd you get all of Zoro's katanas? I don't know if it's still available, but I just went on Amazon and typed in Zoro's katanas, and I found a set of all 4 for about $160, and I bought them about 2 years ago or something. So there you go. There's the answer to that. But same thing with Mihawk. Thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Tekking signing out. I might do videos on other swords in the future, but had to start off with the Kokuto, the best blade in town. You know what I mean? Later, everybody. Signing out.